Welcome to Threads of Truth, a podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today, we head back nearly 1,000 years to the English countryside, where two green-skinned children appeared out of nowhere and left behind a mystery that still haunts historians and internet sleuths alike. So imagine this with me, if you will. It's a peaceful, let's say, sun-drenched harvest day in this quiet English village. You know, the air is heavy with the smell of cut grain, turned earth. Villagers are out working the fields, that kind of steady hum of activity.
A very normal scene for the time.
Exactly. And then suddenly, seemingly out of the ground itself, right near one of these things they called a wolf pit, a deep trap for catching predators, two children emerge, boy and a girl.
Right.
But they are, well, profoundly, unsettlingly different. Unlike anything anyone there has ever seen, their skin isn't just pale, maybe dirty, but a distinct, almost otherworldly green.
Genuinely green, according to all the accounts.
And their clothes are bizarre, like made from unknown stuff, totally unlike local clothing. And the sounds they make, it's not a language anyone recognizes. It's just babble. They're completely incomprehensible.
An immediate barrier. Total confusion.
And then later, much later, when some communication is finally sort of established, their story is just as baffling as they look. They claim they came from this underground world, a place where the sun never shines, a land of perpetual twilight.
St. Martin's Land, they supposedly called it.
St. Martin's Land. Now, to our modern ears, you hear that and think, okay, this sounds like pure folklore, right? Something spun from myth and legend.
It definitely has that fairy tale quality.
It feels like it belongs in a storybook, not a, historical record, but...
Yeah.
What if there's more to it? What if buried under all those layers of storytelling, maybe some fantastical elements, there's a real thread of truth there, something tangible we can actually uncover?
And that's the enduring question, isn't it?
That's exactly what we're going to try and do today. We're going to unpack this whole enigma, look really closely at the historical accounts we do have, sift through some of the more imaginative theories, some wild ones too, and really explore what this ancient tale tells us about maybe that human need to explain things we just don't understand.
It's such a captivating story to start with. I mean, the fact that it survived for nearly 1,000 years is pretty remarkable in itself.
It really is.
And what's striking, I think, is how these really old, almost mythical sounding events, they still echo today.
Yeah.
They resonate so strongly, especially online, finding this whole new audience, new speculation, centuries later.
It's just proof of a really compelling mystery, isn't it? So, okay, let's start at the beginning. Let's set the scene properly for this. We need to cast our minds way back. We're not talking recent history here.
Not at all.
We're talking the mid-12th century, specifically, most likely sometime between 1135 and 1154. And this was a really, really turbulent time in England.
Yeah, famously known as the Anarchy. It was a period of intense civil war, widespread unrest. King Stephen's reign was heavily contested.
So not exactly a peaceful, stable backdrop.
Absolutely not. And that context is so important for understanding this. England then wasn't this stable, unified country we might picture. It was fractured by politics, barons switching sides. Regions could be incredibly isolated from each other.
Right.
Daily life for ordinary people was often really precarious. And people's understanding of the world, very localized, anything deeply foreign, a strange accent, let alone green skin, would have been genuinely shocking, maybe terrifying.
Because news didn't exactly travel fast back then.
Not at all. It traveled slowly, if it even traveled. And rumors, well, they could really take on a life of their own in that kind of environment.
And the place itself, Woolpit, it's not just a quaint name, is it? It tells you something about medieval life.
It really does. The village is in Suffolk, East Anglia, and yeah, the name comes literally from wolf pits. They were actual deep pits, often hidden with branches designed to trap wolves.
Wolves were a real threat back then. To livestock, maybe even people.
A much more immediate danger than we can really imagine today. So it paints this picture of a landscape that's a bit wilder, more untamed, a place maybe bordering on the wilderness, where something bizarre emerging might feel, well, maybe slightly less out of place than in a walled city.
Okay, that makes sense. Kind of the edge of the known world in a way.
In a local sense, yes. And the accounts say the children were found near one of these wolf pits. And significantly, it was during harvest season.
Why is the harvest season part important?
Well, harvest wasn't just farm work. It was intensely communal. pretty much everyone in the village, men, women, older children, would be out in the fields together, working dawn till dusk.
Ah, so lots of witnesses.
Exactly. High visibility. It means the discovery probably wasn't just one person seeing something weird. It was likely observed by many people. That collective witness element gives the initial accounts a bit more, weight. It's hard to dismiss as just one person's tall tale or hallucination.
Right. Multiple pairs of eyes saw these green children. And what an appearance it must have been. The sources, the main historical accounts we have, they're incredibly consistent on this one thing. Their skin was undeniably green.
Unmistakably green. That's the phrase that keeps coming up. Not just sickly, not just stained, genuinely green.
It wasn't just a quick glance thing either. It was their defining feature. Everyone agreed. Can you just imagine the shock? Seeing that for the first time?
It's hard to fathom, really.
Yeah.
And that agreement on the green skin, it's one of the absolute core parts of the mystery. But it wasn't just the skin, was it?
No, their whole presentation was just foreign.
Completely.
Mhm.
Their clothes were described as odd, unfamiliar, made of materials nobody recognized. It wasn't just different fashion. It was alien in construction.
Like nothing known in medieval England.
Exactly. And then, of course, the language barrier. They spoke this unknown tongue, utterly incomprehensible. So any attempt to communicate right away was just futile.
Imagine trying to talk to them. The frustration, every sound, every gesture, meaning nothing.
It would just amplify that sense of profound otherness, not just different, but fundamentally alien.
So not just a dialect problem, a complete wall. And then there was their diet, which was just as strange.
Initially, yes. Apparently, they refused everything, all the normal food offered to them.
You picture the villagers trying to be kind, offering bread, maybe some stew, vegetables.
Standard medieval fare, yeah.
Yeah.
But the children refused it all. They seemed to be starving, but wouldn't eat. Until, quite unexpectedly, someone offered them raw broad beans, straight from the pod, presumably.
Raw broad.
Broad beans. And apparently they ate those with incredible hunger, ravenously.
That is extremely specific
Yeah,
and weird.
very weird. It's not a typical preference, especially for kids, and certainly not typical of a medieval diet. It suggests maybe a very limited diet from wherever they originated. Perhaps is the only thing they recognized or could stomach.
And that detail, like the green skin and the language, it's reported consistently across the main sources, isn't it?
It is. It adds another layer of this specific, verifiable strangeness. It feels too particular to just be made up wholesale.
Okay, so these totally bizarre green-skinned kids are found. They speak gibberish, wear weird clothes, only eat raw beans. They're in a place completely alien to them. What happens next is actually quite, well, compassionate, maybe.
It is quite remarkable for the time. They were taken in by a local knight, a man named Sir Richard de Camp. He's a significant figure, a wealthy landowner.
And he didn't just, lock them up or drive them away. He took them into his household.
Yes, which shows this extraordinary act of, kindness, or at least immense curiosity. To shelter and care for two completely foreign, green-skinned children. It really stands out in an era that could be incredibly brutal and superstitious.
You would expect maybe fear, suspicion.
Exactly. So his willingness to give them refuge is probably why we even have this story recorded. Without his involvement, they might have just disappeared or perished quickly.
But sadly, their fates weren't the same, were they?
No, they diverged significantly. The boy, according to the accounts, grew sickly. He weakened and died relatively soon after they arrived, even after being baptized.
Which is just a really poignant, sad detail, isn't it? Adds to the sense of tragedy and mystery surrounding them.
It does. And the boy's death, his inability to thrive despite the care, it maybe suggests he was less resilient, or perhaps suffering more acutely from whatever condition caused their strange state.
Because the girl, she survived.
She did. And this is where the story takes another fascinating turn. Because as she started to eat a more normal diet, the kind of food available in Sir Richard's household, something remarkable happened.
Her green skin, it faded.
It faded, gradually but completely. According to the chronicler, she transformed. Her skin returned to a normal color, and she became physically indistinguishable from any other English person.
Wow. So it wasn't permanent. It was something that changed with her diet and environment.
Exactly. And that physical transformation is a really key piece of evidence, especially when we start looking at the more grounded explanations later on. The fact that greenness disappeared suggests something medical or environmental, rather than inherently supernatural. It's a huge clue.
A very tangible clue. And she was eventually baptized too, right? Became part of the community.
Yes, baptized, and some accounts even give her the name Agnes. And her integration seems to have been quite thorough. She learned English, she adapted to local customs.
And didn't she reportedly get married?
Apparently so. Reports say she married a local man, possibly from King's Lynn, which isn't too far from Woolpit, which suggests this really remarkable level of acceptance, assimilation even.
Think about that. Someone who literally appears out of nowhere, green, speaking nonsense, claiming to be from underground, ends up marrying a local. It's quite a testament to the community eventually embracing her, or at least being fascinated by her.
It genuinely is remarkable. It implies that over time, she stopped being just this alien curiosity and actually became part of the fabric of the community. A surprising outcome, really.
It makes you wonder what her life was like afterwards. Okay, so how do we even know all these incredible details? We're not just relying on old wives' tales passed down, are we?
No, thankfully. We have two key primary historical accounts, written sources from the era that form the bedrock of what we know about the Green Children.
Right, the chroniclers.
The first, and probably the most famous one, is William of Newburgh. He was an Augustinian canon up in Yorkshire, and he included the story in his big work, the Historia Rerum Anglicarum, the History of English Affairs, which he finished around 1198.
So fairly close to when it supposedly happened?
Relatively close, yes. And what's really interesting about William is his approach. He actually says he was skeptical about the story at first. He didn't just swallow every strange tale he heard.
Okay, that adds some credibility.
It does. He specifically claimed he was only convinced after hearing testimony from what he called reputable witnesses, people whose judgment he trusted. This suggests he was trying, in his way, to be careful, to verify, even with something this extraordinary.
So he's basically saying, look, I know this sounds crazy, but enough trustworthy people told me it happened that I feel I have to record it.
That's essentially the message, yes. It gives it a certain weight coming from him. And the second main source is Ralph of Coggeshall. He was an abbot, writing a bit later, maybe around 1220.
And he was closer to Woolpit, geographically.
Much closer than William, which is significant. And Ralph claimed he heard this story directly from Sir Richard de Cal himself.
The knight who took them in. Wow.
Exactly, the man at the center of it. So Ralph's account potentially offers this incredible sense of immediacy, almost like getting it straight from the horse's mouth, passed down through maybe only one or two people. It feels like oral history becoming written record.
That's amazing. It's almost like an interview source from 900 years ago. But, I mean, how much can we really trust any account from back then, especially one this bizarre? Stories change in the telling, don't they?
That's the crucial question, absolutely. You have to be cautious. Memory fades, biases creep in, and the medieval worldview readily mixed the natural and supernatural. So, yes, filters exist.
Okay.
However, but what gives the core story real strength is the consistency between these two separate accounts. Despite slight variations, both William and Ralph report the same fundamental, startling facts. The green skin, the unknown language, the weird diet of beans, and crucially, the children's own claim of where they came from.
This underground land.
Yes. That convergence on the most unique and bizarre details. It strongly suggests it wasn't just one person's fantasy. It turns to a real known event that both chroniclers felt compelled to record, even if they interpreted it through their own medieval lens. The core elements match up.
Okay, that makes sense. The agreement is key. And this brings us to maybe the most captivating part of all, the girl's own story. Once she learned English, Agnes, or whatever her name was, she explained where they came from. This is what really turns it from just a weird event into this enduring puzzle, right?
Absolutely. It provides a narrative, however fantastical. Her description of St. Martin's Land is just so evocative. She described this dim, subterranean world, no sun, perpetual twilight, like the light just after sunset, she apparently said.
Perpetual dusk.
Yeah.
It immediately paints this picture of another realm entirely, whether that's literal or, symbolic.
It's compelling imagery. And she also mentioned a river of light, some kind of luminous boundary separating her land from, well, presumably ours.
A river of light. Sounds like something from a myth or a dream.
It really does. Potent imagery. And then she explained how they got here. Apparently they were looking after their father's cattle, doing something normal. In their world, when they heard this sound, bells ringing,
Bell.
bells, which is a detail that really leaps out for folklorists because bells often signify crossing a threshold, entering another realm, a fairy hill, a magical place.
Ah, okay. A classic folklore motif.
Very much so. And drawn by the sound, she said they followed it into a cavern or some kind of long, dark passage. They wandered in this darkness for, she didn't know how long, lost all track of time, until eventually they emerged, blinking and bewildered, into the bright sunlight of Woolpit.
Imagine that sensory overload. From perpetual dimness, this twilight world, suddenly into the full glare of an English harvest day. It must have been utterly terrifying, disorienting.
Immense shock, physically and psychologically. And it's this testimony, this origin story, however you choose to interpret it, fantastical or maybe trauma-induced, that lifts the Green Children story. It's not just what happened, but potentially why. It gives the mystery a soul, a narrative that demands we try to understand it.
Okay, so we've got these incredible historical accounts, right? Corroborated, at least on the main points, by these two chroniclers. It details this truly bizarre event. Now let's jump forward almost 1,000 years. This story is having this huge resurgence, especially online. Why now? Why the internet? What makes this medieval tale grab people in the digital age?
Well, first, the story just has this timeless appeal, doesn't it? It keeps bubbling up across the centuries. But you're right, its presence online now is massive. It's huge on platforms like Reddit, Unresolved Mysteries, our Folklore. It sparks huge debates there.
Oh yeah, I've seen those threads. They go on forever.
Exactly. And YouTube, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
From serious History Channel type documentaries to shows like Ancient Aliens suggesting extraterrestrial links, right through to channels dedicated purely to folklore analysis.
If you search Green Children Woolpit, you get bombarded. Videos with millions of views, every possible angle.
And the internet is just perfect soil for stories like this to not just survive, but to thrive and mutate. You can share info instantly, globally. You can speculate together, connect with people who share your fascination wherever they are.
It gives these old mysteries a whole new lease on life.
It really does.
Yeah.
People can access summaries of the sources, compare notes, propose theories, debate them in a way that just wasn't possible before. It's like this collective global effort to unravel these threads.
Yeah.
Or maybe tangle them up even more. It sort of democratizes the mystery.
Democratization of mystery. I like that. It stops being just for academics. Okay, so let's explore some of these theories that have gained steam online, starting with the really, well, out there ones, the most fantastic.
Right. Perhaps the most common one in certain circles, ancient astronaut theorists, UFO buffs, paranormal groups, is the alien origin or interdimensional beings theory.
Okay. Extraterrestrials.
Yeah. For them, the green skin, the unknown language, the girl's description of a twilight world, these are seen as potential hallmarks of visitors from another planet, or maybe another dimension, beings who accidentally crossed over, perhaps through a thin place, those locations in folklore where the veil between worlds is weak.
It's the ultimate what if, isn't it? What if they weren't from Earth at all? The details are strange enough that you can see why people make that leap. But is that just us projecting our modern sci-fi ideas onto it?
That's a really good question. The elements do fit modern tropes, but medieval people had their own ideas of other worlds of beings, fairies, underworld spirits. So maybe it's just reinterpreting an old idea through a new lens.
Okay. So related to that, but maybe more rooted in the time period itself.
Exactly. The otherworld or fairy lore connection. This draws directly on medieval beliefs. The idea is the children literally were from fairyland or some hidden underworld. These places were thought to be real, accessible through caves, hills, maybe even wolf pits.
Connecting back to the location?
Precisely. And that detail about hearing bells, that's classic fairy tale stuff. Bells luring people into the fairy realm. So for people back then, this might have seemed like a plausible, if unsettling, explanation.
They literally stepped out of a folktale into Woolpit. Wild.
It fits the mindset of the time. Then there's a slightly more, grounded, but still speculative idea. The underground survivors theory.
Okay, what's that?
This suggests they were humans, but refugees or maybe inhabitants of some undiscovered cave system, or maybe an old mine. Perhaps they were hiding underground after a battle or some disaster, got lost, and eventually found their way out.
So the Twilight Land wasn't another dimension, just a really dark cave they were stuck in.
Possibly. a traumatized memory of prolonged darkness and fear filtered through a child's perspective. It bridges the gap between the truly fantastical and the more, let's say, earthly possibilities.
Right. Sounds a bit Jules Verne. Okay, so let's move to the theories that historians and scientists tend to favor, the more grounded explanations.
Indeed. And the one that's widely considered the most plausible by many historians is the Flemish refugee theory.
Flemish, as in from Flanders.
Exactly. Remember the historical context. The 12th century, especially under Henry II later on, saw serious persecution of Flemish immigrants in East Anglia. Woolpit's right there. These Flemish communities, often weavers or merchants, faced violence, displacement, even massacres.
So children could easily have been orphaned, lost.
Absolutely. Lost or abandoned during conflicts, maybe fleeing through dense woods or remote areas.
And their unknown language,
Yeah.
it wouldn't be unknown at all. It would just be Flemish.
Precisely. A dialect the local English villagers wouldn't understand. That immediately solves the language puzzle.
Okay, that makes sense. What about the green skin? That's the really striking part.
And this theory has an answer for that too, based on a known medical condition, chlorosis. It's often called green sickness.
Green sickness.
Yes. It's a severe form of iron deficiency anemia, hypochromic anemia. It's caused by extreme malnutrition, a diet severely lacking in iron and other nutrients. And it can give the skin a distinct, noticeable greenish tint. Waxy pale green.
Wow. So malnutrition could literally make you look green.
It could. And crucially, think back to the girl. Her green skin faded completely when she started eating a normal, presumably more iron-rich diet.
That fits perfectly.
Very strong correlation. The greenness wasn't permanent. It was linked to diet and health. It provides a powerful natural explanation observed right there in the original accounts.
That feels like a really solid piece of evidence for this theory. It explains the green skin and its disappearance. In the Twilight world.
Well, if you're two terrified, malnourished children lost for days, maybe weeks, perhaps hiding in dark woods or an old mine or caves, wouldn't that feel like a Twilight land?
Yeah, I guess it would. A confused, traumatic memory.
Exactly. Fear, disorientation, lack of light and food. It could easily manifest as that kind of fantastical story, especially in a child trying to make sense of a horrific experience. It turns a tragic, possibly mundane event into something mysterious.
Okay, the Flemish refugee theory with chlorosis. That covers a lot of the key points very neatly. Are there other non-fantastical theories?
Well, there's the idea of it being a medieval allegory. Not a literal event at all, but a symbolic story. Crafted or maybe just embellished over time to convey a deeper message.
A moral tale.
Perhaps. In this view, the green color could symbolize being pagan, unconverted, outside the Christian community, or maybe it represents sin or ignorance.
And the green fading, the baptism, that represents conversion, redemption.
Exactly. Entering the light of Christianity. It's a very common theme in medieval thought, the assimilation of outsiders into the faith. A very powerful metaphor.
Or maybe a subtler message. Even though the chroniclers talk about kindness, maybe there's an underlying warning about outsiders, or perhaps a lesson about kindness.
Medieval stories often worked on multiple levels, moral, religious, even political. So, yes, it could carry complex meanings. And finally, we should just mention the hoax theory.
Just that it was all made up?
Basically. Some later writers, like the antiquarian William of Camden in the 16th century, just dismissed it as pure fiction, a tall tale.
But given we have two independent chroniclers from the 12th century, both recording it, one quite skeptically, does a complete hoax seem likely?
It feels less likely than an interpretation of a real, if strange, event. The corroboration, even by medieval standards, suggests something happened that caught people's attention and required explanation. Pure invention feels a bit harder to sustain given their efforts.
Right. It seems rooted in something real, even if that reality got twisted or mythologized. Okay, so we've walked through this amazing spectrum of explanations, from aliens and fairies to malnourished refugees and allegories. We're not left with one single answer, are we? It's more like this fascinating mess of possibilities.
It really is. And that complexity is where the real interest lies now, perhaps. What does this whole enduring puzzle tell us about how we understand truth, both back then and maybe even today? How do we navigate that blurry line between what we call folklore and what we call fact?
It's a very blurry line, especially back then.
Absolutely central to understanding this. For William of Newburgh, for Ralph of Coggeshall, That line was much, much fuzzier than it is for us. They lived in a world steeped in oral tradition, where miracles, divine signs, supernatural events weren't automatically dismissed. They were often seen as part of reality.
So, recording a story about green children appearing from the ground, it was weird, yes, but not necessarily impossible within their framework.
Exactly. Shocking. Maybe unprecedented, but not outside the bounds of what could happen in a world where God or other forces actively intervened. Their decision to record it tells us a lot about what they considered truth, or at least worth recording. It wasn't just about empirical proof like we think of it.
And their reliability as chroniclers.
Yeah.
We have to see it through that lens.
Yeah, we do. Their methods were different. William's skepticism, his reliance on reputable witnesses, that shows a kind of vetting, but based on trust and reputation, not science. Ralph's direct link to Sir Richard, that's powerful oral history, highly valued then, even if it's not a verifiable document for us.
So they were trying to record something significant using the tools and beliefs they had. And their commitment to writing it down brings us back to the girl's story. Why is her explanation, no matter how strange, so powerful? Why does that part stick with us?
Because it provides the why. It gives a narrative, a beginning, a context to something otherwise completely inexplicable. Without her story, it's just two green kids showed up. Bizarre, but maybe forgettable. Her tale turns it into a puzzle with a backstory.
It makes it a mystery with characters and a world.
Precisely. It taps into that fundamental human need for causality, for explanation. Even a fantastical explanation is often more satisfying than none at all. It gives the whole thing meaning, a human dimension that resonates deeply across time.
It fills in the blanks, and clearly the story has resonated. It's mutated, resurfaced, endured for centuries. How do tales like this get passed down, changing with each telling, yet still grab us today?
They act like these incredibly tough cultural containers. They get retold, reshaped, reinterpreted, not just to entertain, but often to reflect the anxieties, the beliefs, the fascinations of each new era.
And why this story? What's its specific, enduring appeal?
I think it taps into really fundamental human things. The unknown, the other, that deep desire we have to explain the unexplainable. It touches on themes of alienness, hidden worlds, trauma, survival, how we react to the truly unfamiliar. It's a primal encounter with mystery.
And now the internet just pours gasoline on that fire, doesn't it? How do digital platforms amplify these ancient mysteries?
Oh, massively. The internet is like this giant decentralized archive of human curiosity and speculation. Stories like this spread instantly, but more than that, you get this collective intelligence or maybe collective speculation focused on it.
Different people bringing different perspectives.
Exactly. Someone digs up an obscure text. Someone else applies modern medical knowledge. Another person connects it to UFO lore or spiritual ideas. And this dialogue, this clash and blend of perspectives, keeps the story alive, constantly shifting, constantly being reevaluated by this global audience. It's like living folklore, unfolding in real time.
The modern global campfire with way more theories flying around.
Pretty much. And at the heart of it all, beyond the green skin and underground worlds, there's that timeless theme, the outsider.
Right. How the community reacted.
And what's striking in the accounts is that the reaction seems to have been mostly curiosity and kindness, not immediate aggression, which for the 12th century maybe wasn't the default reaction to something so profoundly strange.
Sir Richard taking them in, the villagers trying to feed them.
An intriguing detail. Maybe it was a subtle message the chroniclers wanted to send about compassion, about how a community should respond to the vulnerable or the foreign, even in chaotic times. It's quite different from many other historical accounts of encountering the other.
It suggests a capacity for wonder, maybe, for empathy, even when faced with the totally bewildering. So, what does this story tell us about medieval society encountering the truly foreign? And maybe about us?
It suggests a society that, yes, was rooted in its beliefs, but also had this space for wonder, for curiosity, maybe even for accepting the truly alien. It wasn't totally closed off. Strange things happened, and they were absorbed, interpreted, sometimes integrated, not just instantly rejected. And maybe that's a question for us, too. When we face the unexplained today, do we just try to neatly debunk it, categorize it away, or do we sometimes allow for that sense of mystery, that possibility that some things just defy easy answers?
And that really brings all the threads together, doesn't it? We're left weighing everything. Science, the medicine chlorosis, Flemish refugees against the folklore, the fantastic fairies, other dimensions, that twilight world. There just isn't one single simple answer that ties it all up neatly for the green children of Woolpit.
Exactly. And maybe that ambiguity is the point. That's what makes it so rich and enduring. It allows for all these different interpretations, each holding some validity within its own frame. The truth isn't one thing here. It's this complex, fascinating tapestry woven from history, belief, psychology, trauma, and maybe just the limits of what we can ever truly know.
It forces us to keep questioning.
It does. It forces us to grapple with the unknown.
Yeah.
And maybe that's its real lasting power.
It's a mystery we're perhaps not meant to fully solve. Keeps us curious, keeps us exploring those boundaries of what we think is possible. So, what do you make of the green children of Woolpit? Were they a myth, a metaphor for something deeper in medieval society, or were they truly messengers from another world entirely? Thank you for joining us on this exploration of a truly ancient and perplexing enigma. Next time, we set sail on a family cruise and never return. The disappearance of Amy Lynn Bradley from a Royal Caribbean ship in 1998 sparked decades of sightings, fears of human trafficking, and unanswered calls for help.